Hey, I'm John, and I'm on disability in the US under a program called Social Security Disability Insurance. So I'm receiving money for problems with my brain, mental health reasons, and I'm going to explain how to get disability, SSDI or SSI, in the US. So what the so of course you can just Google, how to apply for SSDI or how to apply for SSI and get your documents together, fill out the forms, etc. But the most important thing you need to know about these programs, SSDI if you have a work history and SSI if you don't have a work history, is that programs are for people who cannot do any full-time work, even minimum wage work. So there's this initial determination process that they go through after you apply, and it's really important, so I'm going to read it out loud. Determination. The decision about disability is based on a sequential evaluation of medical and other evidence. The sequence for adults is 1. Is the applicant performing substantial gainful activity? Substantial gainful activity is minimum wage full-time work or anything above minimum wage full-time work. So if you cannot do part-time minimum wage work, that's a no. But if you can do full-time minimum wage work, that's a yes. And that even includes like jobs that might be considered shitty or easy, like bagging groceries or doing washing dishes at a restaurant, or like being a secretarial assistant, or any like literally any job, even if it's easy or doesn't require any education. If it's minimum wage, full-time, it counts as substantial gainful activity. So if you're doing pretty much any work except for part-time minimum wage. So if you're doing any work, it's yes. And then they go on to the next step. Is the application's impairment severe? If no, deny. If yes, continue to the next sequence. So severity is determined based on medical records. It also, me personally, I mailed in a letter to Disability Determination Services. I sent two letters, one to my local office and one to the person who was reviewing my case. My letter had my full name, my social security number, the case number. It was in response to a letter they sent me, so I had a case number for it. The name of the person, the disability determination person who was assigned to my case, and then the explanation. Um, and in the letter, you explain that your condition is severe. You explain that you can't do any job in the economy. You explain, why you can't do any job in the economy. I personally sent letters, and I meant perhaps they helped me because I was approved. Anyway, going on, the next question is: does the impairment meet or exceed the severity of impairments listed in the listing of impairments? If yes, allow the claim. If no, continue to the next sequence. So the listing of impairments is a list of conditions. So if you Google SSA Blue Book, there's a list of impairments. And the SSA Blue Book covers pretty much any condition you could possibly imagine. But here, the following section contains medical criteria that apply to the evaluation of impairments in adults age 18 and over. So let's say you have, I don't know, something like something mental, and then you have something like you can control F to search, but bipolar or something. So these you have some explanation of symptoms, and then you have they'll explain what you need to have for that particular condition in the SSA Blue Book. So you have to have these symptoms, you have to have these symptoms, and they look at the medical records. They don't have time to look like super in depth, but they'll just skim it and make a decision based on what they've seen from what they've skimmed. Uh, and anyway, so inside of the one second. Inside of here, they'll have things like they'll have these like paragraphs where they talk about things that like might affect your condition or like how they make a determination. So for example, for let's say bipolar disorder, they might go for, so if you go for if you go to like, let's say, jump to 1204, they look, this is what you need to make the the diagnosis, but then there's also what you need to have in order for them to say it's severe enough. So here, for example, your mental disorder is listed in serious and persistent, that is a medically documented history of the existence of the disorder for a period of at least 2 years, and there's evidence of both medical treatment and medical adjustment, medical capacity to adjust to changes in your environment. So some of these are kind of like bullshit requirements, but they look for severity and that it at least like matches up to the description of the condition they're looking for. Anyway, so they check to see if it's severe. If it's not severe, they reject it. Is the applicant able to perform past work? If yes, then I have no, continue to the next sequence. And is the applicant able to perform any work in the economy? If yes, deny. If no, allow the claim. So this is the key part here: is the applicant able to perform any work in the economy? Most applications are rejected, and the reason is that they're able to perform some work in the economy, no matter how rudimentary. In order to get an approval for disability for SSDI, if you have a work history, or SSI, if you don't have work history, is they have to be convinced, based on the information they gather, that you are not able to perform any work in the U.S. economy, even minimum wage, even no matter how remedial. Uh, so another thing is that you have to have a diagnosis that's like official and is corroborated by a doctor. So the people who make the disability are called disability determination services. The two people who will make your decision will be a government employee of disability determination services and a doctor who work together. So one thing you should know is almost all applications lacking a physician's documentation of a known condition are rejected. So you have to have, like, even if you say like I can't work, like it has to be backed up by a doctor. It has to be official. In addition, they will call someone. So um, if you look at the one second, if you look at the alternative contact, they'll ask for a phone number of someone who you can contact about your medical condition. So a good person is like a parent, someone who you live with, maybe a roommate or something, and they'll ask them questions. The questions they ask will be to determine uh, if you can work, basically, and they'll ask questions like if it's a mental illness related case, they might ask like, do you shower? Do you get along with coworkers? Can you follow orders? Like basic things. Um, and you can like answer honestly, but like you might want to think about like what are they trying to determine, and maybe explain like if the answer isn't doesn't give the impression that you're disabled, you might want to explain like why you're disabled, have them explain why you're disabled, even though you gave this answer. So you might want to say something like, I shower, but I'm a hermit. I don't interact with people, and I can't work with people. If they ask like, do you shower? Because like if you say like I shower, that could hurt your case, because they could say, oh, well, you shower, you can interact with people, you can be employed. Um, so you might want to talk to whoever your alternative contact is about the fact that they will be contacted by Social Security Administration, and talk about like the kind of information that you want them to convey, like why you can't work, an explanation of why you can't work and the things you want them to tell them. You also want to talk to your doctor. So your doctor's medical records are the most important thing, and you want to have a doctor who is you want to ask for the medical records and read over them and make sure they're good and they give a convincing explanation that your condition is severe and that it gives the impression that you can't work. And you also want you want to find a doctor who will put things in the medical records that you say to them. So if you say like, I'm in excruciating pain, you want the doctor to write, this person is in excruciating pain, they can't function, they can't, they're just like paralyzed or something. You want that to be in the record. Some doctors will like dismiss it, be like, oh, it's not a big deal, or they're not helpful to your case, and that'll get you rejected if your doctor isn't helpful to your case. So you want to find a doctor and have a long-term relationship with a doctor who is sympathetic to you and will help your case. Um, and you want, when you're finding a doctor, you want someone who you can stay with long term. So you want to have a doctor who you see every year, like your general physician. You also want to have like a specialist, like a psychiatrist, if it's a mental health claim, or if it's like a, you know, immune system claim, a rheumatologist. But you want someone you see regularly, and you want to see them. You want to, before enough time before you first apply. You want to you want to have a relationship with them where they can, give the information that conveys that you can't work. So it's important to have, even if you're in good health, you want to have a doctor you see every year for your annual checkup. And if you have a mental health problem, you want to have someone who you see regularly for your medication. And again, it helps, even if especially if you haven't applied yet, if you just want to be if you just want to like be able to apply in the future, possibly you want to find a doctor who is sympathetic to you and is willing to put in the information that will help you get your case approved. Some doctors are a pain in the ass, or some doctors will minimize your problems, and that, if the doctor writes like mild pain or something in the medical records, the government employee is in a rush. They'll just look at it and go mild, rejected. They're in a rush. They don't have time to super dig into everything. If they don't believe everything you tell them, it has to be corresponded with medical records. So yeah. So once they have, and the initial determination with disability determination process will take like 7 months, maybe 8 months, and then if it gets rejected, it goes appealed. It goes through another 7 8 months, and then if that gets rejected and then it'll go to trial. Trial could take multiple years. To get to the point of getting accepted on trial could be 3 4 years sometimes. So it's a very long process. For trial, you want to have a lawyer who will take a percentage of your benefits from you. If you get, if you don't have to if you can get it approved before seeing a lawyer, that's great. But a lot of mental health cases, you end up having to go to trial because they're not clear cut. You don't have to end up having to tell a judge, why you can't work. Another thing is it helps that if you attempted to work and couldn't. So if you could get like a letter from a previous employer explaining why they fired you or that you're unable to do the work, that'll help your case. Um, in my case, while during the 6 7 month process of disability determination services was making a determination for me, I made a work attempt. I didn't last 30 days. I couldn't do the job. And I sent them a letter saying, hey, I made a work attempt. This is the dates of my work attempt. I wasn't able to do the work. I can't work. Please accept my application. That could help your case. What they don't want to see is that you didn't even try to work, or that you're, unwilling to work, or that you just want to, sit home with your parents all day. Um, they want to see that you try to work and that you want to work and that you have a willingness to work and you're still not able to. So, and it sucks that the process takes so long. And another thing is sometimes they don't get, sometimes you tell them a doctor and the doctor doesn't send the records on time, or they don't get the records. So personally, I would send the records 2 ways. I would request the records for myself, so I have a personal copy. And then I would, when I make the application, I would, give disability determination the information. So when you apply, you give them the information, of the when you're applying, you fill out the information for your doctor's contact information, so that your doctor can send them the medical records. You can also go to the office of disability determination services, or when you're when you're going to the office or sending in the application, you could also include your own copy of your medical records, so they have your copy of the medical records, and also the doctor sends them the copy, so that you know that they got it. Same thing when I send them letters. I send 2 copies, one to the person who's reviewing my case, and one to like my local office with the name, with the case number and social security number and name of the person, so that someone gets it. And then you can sometimes when you try to call them to determine if they got your records, they oftentimes there's a 1-800 number for a social security number, but a lot of times they won't pick up, or there'll be a very long wait time, or you'll have to wait an hour, and then the automated system will say we're overbooked and hang up on you, so you have to try again. So they're underfunded, and it's a real pain in the ass, but you just keep trying, and you find like the right time of day and the right time of month where you can get through to a person to make sure they have all of your information. But yeah, it's very difficult to get approved. Most people who apply get rejected. It's especially difficult if it's mental health related. But like one thing that I did is I sent them a letter. But yeah, if you could convince them that you can do any job in the economy, and if the person who they talk to on the phone, gives them the information of like, if it's a mental health related case, if you can't shower, if you don't interact well with people, if you have a personality disorder, that can help you. Like if you have like, antisocial, like not antisocial, but like borderline personality disorder, like a schizoid personality disorder, or something else that makes it so you can't work with people, that helps your case. There are a lot of things that can help your case, um, but you want to make sure that they get all the information, that you've sent everything over, and you want to, you want to be able to convince both the government employee and their doctor who are reviewing your case that based on your medical records and based on what you've sent them and based on what they've talked to on the phone, that you can't do any job in the economy. But yeah, if you can convince them of that, that's how you get approved for disability. It's a